A very warm welcome to all our viewers. Thank you for tuning in to Malaika, the talk show for African Christian women. Please stay with us for our topic for today. To talk about the dynamics of step-parenting today, I'm joined by my lovely co-hosts, Jackie and Auntie Zots, as well as Mama Audrey. Mama, we're always so happy to have you on.
Such a joy to be together again.
Wonderful. And actually, we have a guest all the way from Zimbabwe, but we'll get to meet her later on in the show. So before we go any further, we'll take this time just to hear our overview from Jackie. So Jackie, the dynamics of step-parenting, I mean, it's something, I've seen it quite a lot now lately. So it'll be interesting to hear what you have in your overview today.
Okay, so step-parenting, quite an interesting topic. So start with the definition. Step families consist of at least one minor child who's living with the biological parent and the parent's spouse, a step-parent, who is not the child's other biological parent.
Okay.
I'm sure you've all read when you were young about the fairy tales. We have Cinderella, Snow White, Hansel and Gretel. These were wicked women. They didn't pack lunches, they didn't ferry kids to sports events, they didn't buy presents. But according to an author who explored fairy tales and myths, the fairy tale didn't really reveal the universal truths, but it was a creation of the time. That was just a starter, guys, okay? Let's get into some stats. In South Africa now, brace it, I've got a few figures here. These are living circumstances of children between 0 and 4. Okay, so 93% of young children have both biological parents still living.
Okay.
36% of them live with both biological parents. 43% live with only their biological mom, which means more live with their biological mom than actually live with both biological parents.
Okay.
Only 2% live with only their biological father. 19% do not live with either their biological parents. Reasons now, according to an American statistic, it says American family life in the past half century has contributed to this. We have two reasons, or some, I've got many reasons, but I'll just give you two.
Okay.
Otherwise I'll talk for a long time, I won't bore you. So I have one which is increase in divorce. I'll give you some stats a bit later about divorce. And a share of babies born out of wedlock.
Okay.
In Namibia now, 2016, the reasons for step-parenting, we've got informal polygamy, the impact of HIV and AIDS, the decrease in marriage rates, and the increase in informal cohabitation. So let's go quickly to divorce rates, okay, just to put it into context. Globally, divorce rate has increased by almost 250% since 1960.
That is.
In the US, it's now 53% of marriages actually end up in divorce. In South Africa now, in 2016, there were almost 25,000 divorces. And 43% of these divorces included a child that was less than 18. In India, which is total contrary, it's only 1% of divorce rate.
Wow.
According to a Canadian university, this is for the Kenyan population, divorce rates in Kenya are 15%, which is actually half those of the neighboring countries, which is about 30%. This is due to the age of their first marriage. Usually they get married a bit later, and the higher education of females there.
Okay.
So dynamics of it now. According to a research done, a survey of 1,500 young people in the US, the researcher found out that those from divorced families that were younger than 14 when the split occurred, she saw that these children were more amped than those living in intact families to feel divided between two homes with different values.
Yeah.
They were asked to keep secrets about different households. They were left without guidance on what is right and what is wrong, turning instead to friends. They were more amped to struggle with loss, isolation, loneliness, and suffering.
So hard.
these children had a sense of living in two different worlds.
Sure.
They grew up with the difficulty of feeling whole, according to the survey. Dynamics in Namibia now. Participants in every region view stepchildren as being very vulnerable to physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse even. Though we do have some good news. Positive relationships, though, I've actually noted. In another study, I read that children of a divorce tend to do well if mother and father, regardless of remarriage, assumed parent roles, put differences aside, and continued the relationship with both parents.
Okay.
I'll end with a quote from Namibia. It says, "There's a plant in Namibia with very sharp leaves that sting, and it's called stepmother's tongue."
No,
Yes.
that's funny.
That is actually quite fun. I'm sure that statement is actually based on those Cinderella fairy tales.
Probably. I wouldn't doubt it.
But thank you for that, Jackie. But as we continue, I mean, let's go down to Southern Africa, Auntie Zods. What are the actual dynamics of step parenting there?
Rose, I'll just go back a little bit. Traditionally, there was a better setup in the community. And generally what would happen is if a child maybe was born out of wedlock or for some reason maybe a death, there wasn't much divorce then, the child would normally go straight to the grandmother. The grandmother assumed the responsibility and should raise the child as her own. So, and the grandmother already was part of the fabric of the family. So for the child, it wasn't so traumatic as we're seeing it today. And then also, I mean, I'll just take you a step back. We've spoken about this before. What amazes me is that in the old days, polygamy was normal. You'd find 4 wives to 1 man, all with children.
Yes.
But because there was such a clear hierarchy and order, the first wife assumed the responsibility of everybody. There was respect, and the social order was very clear. And the children of the last wife knew that they were at the end, and they respected the older ones. So the system worked. But then now, with the increase in divorce, HIV and AIDS, as Jackie has said, the whole fabric has fallen through. Grandmothers are not as there as they used to be. And in fact, actually these days, grandmothers are career women.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, I've lived my life, you sort out your kids.
Yeah.
So it's changed a lot. And that's why you find that there's a gap where children end up being brought up by another woman. And I'll be honest, it's not an easy thing in Africa. It's not easy for the stepmother because generally all eyes are on her. She now needs to love this child as her own. There's an expectation from her husband that she needs to take care of this child, especially when it's his child. It becomes more complicated when it's her child because he may not even take care of, because this one is yours.
Yeah.
And as Jackie said, because of that, the children are vulnerable because that's where we see abuse, as she's mentioned. And those are the things that you find are quite a struggle. And it's not just for the stepmother, for the children themselves.
Yes, exactly.
Because they're torn. They don't know who's my real mother.
Tough.
And it's very often now, especially due to divorce, where there's shared custody. So 1 week you are with mom, the other week you are with dad, and dad has a new wife and mom has a new husband, and this child now has 4 sets of parents.
Becomes complicated.
Yeah, it's like how do you then raise a child with the same value? How do you, if
No
you're a
wonder
Christian, how do you...
How these children end up at the end of the day.
It's not an easy one.
Yeah. So now, how best should a step parent then raise the child that has just come in? Should it be any different from her own biological children?
No. On the contrary, I would say that child there should be more room for that child.
Okay.
Because that's the one who is suffering. We must make sure that the other kids do not make him feel that is, the unnatural one, that he doesn't belong to this family, that we're putting up with him because we have to. And I think we must make sure, the parents must make sure that the other siblings are really nice and brotherly to this one.
Exactly.
But again, we know as young kids are. We know as children
Exactly.
are. They can be nasty. They can have the words that you don't want to hear at the wrong time. And on the side of the parents, obviously, we must expect that child to have reactions.
Okay.
We can't expect that child to flow, to come in and adapt, you know, from day one. No, we must expect the child to have reactions, to be maybe sulky, to be rebellious.
Yes, withdrawn.
Withdrawn, and we must make room for that.
Okay.
We must win the heart of that child
Exactly.
by our love, by our patience, and make him understand that we understand that he's going through a hard time, and we understand it's not the best, but let's try to make it work as much as we can. And maybe more patience towards him than the other kids, but at the end of the day, he must also feel that he has got the same treatment
Exactly.
as the others in everything.
Okay. All right, I think that's very clear, Mama Audrey. And I think it would be good for us to take this opportunity to just hear from our sister Alvera, who is from Zimbabwe. And let's hear her experiences today. Alvera, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on the program today. And so as we continue, Alvera, please enlighten us. How did you actually become a step-parent?
I got married to a husband who was coming from a previous marriage. And from that marriage, he had a son who then became my stepson. And before we decided to bring him into the home, we had to go through a process where I had to come to terms with me taking care of somebody else's child, and for my husband as well to gain trust in him, knowing that I was going to be able to take care of his son, and not even mentioning of his mother, because she had to have that confidence in us to know that this couple is going to be able to take care of my son. Before he moved in with us, I already had my 2 children, and that became even easier for me to take care of this one because he had siblings already.
So what were some of the challenges then that you faced now as a step-parent?
The challenges that I faced as a stepmother was trying to break through to the child. He was a very reserved child, quiet, and for me to get through to him, to create a relationship, it was a bit difficult. But eventually, with time, we managed to pull through. And another challenge that I faced was afraid of being labeled a monster mom. You know, all eyes will be on you, and people will be watching, and they've got their own expectations. And in so doing, I found myself going to the extremes of trying to please this child and making him happy all the time. And on the other hand, I had children. I failed to balance that because I would do some things for him and not for my own children. And that was a challenge. And also the triangle relationship that we had, there was me, the mother, and the father. Sometimes we would have differences, and it was a challenge sometimes to resolve issues. But one way or the other, we had to come to a place where all of us were happy. And also sometimes the child would go to his mother. By the time he comes back, he's a different child altogether.
So now, to what extent have things actually changed, you know, where you're concerned, your husband and your biological children as well?
Things had really changed for the better, for the best, because we had knitted together very well. We were all happy, and but then my husband eventually passed away, and we then had to deal with the loss. For me, it was, for all of us really, me and his siblings, it was a big blow, because now we had to deal with a double loss, where we had to deal with the loss of the father and the loss of the brother because of financially I could not take care of him. And so we decided that the mother take him back with her to live with her. We had made so much progress in the relationship with the son, and even with the siblings. We had made so much progress, and it's sad that he had to go back to his mother.
So, Alvera, what would you say to someone who's finding themselves in this situation where they have to be a step-parent and they're actually struggling to come to terms with everything that surrounds it?
I would say to someone who is step-parenting that, you know, it's a tough road to be a stepmother or a stepfather. It's not easy. There are some things that come naturally, and there are some things that have to grow within our hearts. And for me, my son became a hard child. I loved him with all my heart, and it takes a heart that is broken in the Lord. And if you are struggling, one thing that I can say is trust the Lord. Let the Lord lead you and let the Lord guide you. With Him, all things are possible.
So, Mama Audrey, there we have it. You know, this is just one situation. There's many more others out there. What advice can be given for better transition for someone who's actually becoming a step-parent?
I think we must count the cost. Okay. We must not go in it blindly. Mm-hmm. We must know what it's going to cost, what it's going to entail. Because as we heard Alvera, you know, she had to win the heart of that child. Yeah. Otherwise, it becomes unbearable to live under the same roof with a child that's rebellious, that do not want to cooperate, that makes you understand all day, that is not happy, that is a victim. Yeah. In fact, it's true, he is a victim. But it takes a work of the Lord in the heart of someone to make you love a child who is not yours.
Yes. Yeah.
You can't just have to love the child because you have to. It's not something that comes automatically. Yeah. And at the end of the day, there must be, like Alvera said, it costs a broken heart. Your heart has to be broken for God to make room, because remember, as I said at the beginning, it's not a natural situation. Yeah. But at the end of the day, we are asking the Lord, some words, Lord, give me your heart for that child.
Exactly.
Let me be able to love that child and see him with your eyes and love him with your heart. Because you will need patience. Yes. You will need faith. Yes. You will need love. You will need. I think you will need all the fruits of the Spirit on the same day.
You need them all.
And make sure that your kids do not blame you. That you're making a difference, because obviously you would have a tendency to try to win the heart of that child. Yes. You might, like Alvera said, buy things that you're not buying for your own children. But to make him understand that you love him and that you're okay, and that you want to take care of him. And that's a huge challenge. Yeah. And I think we must be very real in ourselves. If we're not ready to take that challenge, we must be honest. Yeah. Because the life of the child depends on it. We can make it or we can break it.
Exactly.
And it's so important that, you know, it's a responsibility. It's a serious responsibility before the Lord. We're not dealing with toys here. We're not dealing here with plastic. We're dealing with lives
of people.
And I think it's very important.
Okay, thank you for that, Mama Audrey. I think just going back a bit to Southern Africa, are the dynamics any different if the child is older and is not a minor, you know, 18 years going upwards?
It actually gets more difficult when the children are older. Like Jackie said, you know, stepmothers are normally called step monsters, and everyone has this negative idea.
And that live in Namibia.
With the thorn.
The stepmother's tongue.
But in the meantime, when it comes to older children, actually the stepmother is the one that is persecuted. Because now she marries into this family, and there's been a wife in that home, and she's seen as an intruder. I spoke to a woman who's got 3 stepdaughters who are all over 20, and they didn't accept her. They'll say, no, but this is our mother's house. This is our mother's kitchen. These are our mother's pots. This is our mother's this. And she couldn't break through. And they completely fought and resisted
Which
her
you can
all the
expect.
way.
It might never happen.
And that's it. So it's like now she was faced with this opposition that she had to deal with daily. It gets even more complicated when it's a Christian lady and she's bringing up her own kids in the values of a Christian lifestyle. Then you now get a stepchild coming into the home who's been raised as in ancestral worship, or he's been in the world. He now starts playing his worldly music and bringing all sorts of things home, and he's older. Now, how do you can't raise him
because the influence on your kids now.
That your kids are now exposed to things that normally they were not exposed to, and because he's a full-grown woman or full-grown man, they are raised already. So what do? You can't unmold, so now you have to balance this. It's a balancing act.
It's a balancing act.
Yeah.
Sheesh. So now, Mama Audrey, I mean, there's a lot of balancing here that needs to happen. But I think for the step-parent now, how can she then deal with this hostility and this opposition that she may face?
You have to swallow. You can't force the child to love you and accept you as his mom. It's impossible. As I said, you have to cry to the Lord to help you win the heart of that child, which is not something that it's not won already. It's something to pursue. But we don't know what the child has gone through. We don't know how he feels about it. We don't know exactly what he hears at home about you. And it's a very long road. But obviously, the Lord wants to equip you. The Lord will want to help you. It's not, like something which is completely impossible. It is possible, but it's a long road. It's a road of suffering. It's a road where we need to work very close with the Lord, because you can start building a relationship and you are, filling the gap, and suddenly one thing happens. It can be anything, and you're back to square one.
Yeah.
Can be demotivating.
And even further than square one. And you've got to start building again. And in the midst of that, you've got your kids.
Yes.
To raise, to love, to take care. Already that's so much. And if on top of all you're working, oh Lord, help you.
Sure.
Exactly.
So, this is why the Lord created marriage. And for it to work, it's very simple. It's to have Jesus in the midst of the couple.
Exactly.
Because otherwise there's so many heartaches, there is so many consequences, bad and sad consequences. And most of the time, the ones who are paying
The children.
the highest cost, the children.
Yes, the children.
So
Yeah.
what is the role, though, of the biological parent in this whole setup if there's conflict, if there's opposition, if, even the mom is struggling to build, if there's interference from the stepmom, what is the role of the biological parent?
Do anything to protect the child.
Okay.
To keep the child out of all these things, to sort their own little kitchen problems among themselves, but as much as possible to keep the child. And for the biological mother to be very careful not to speak negative things in front of that child, on the dad, on the stepmother. The same thing for the stepmother, not to say things when the child comes like, you took these bad habits from your family, from your mother, you're coming back again. Careful, the words can go such a long way, such a long way. So, more than ever, I would say, they need Jesus.
Exactly.
They need Jesus, and that child needs to know Jesus. To be able to grow in the ways of the Lord, to forgive his dad, to forgive his man. And also very often these children, they feel guilty. They feel that's the problem between mom and dad.
It's because of
came because of them. The devil is accusing them to make them believe they are the cause of the problem.
Sure.
And this is something they struggle to live with, to sort out. It's a very difficult situation for all concerned, and even more so if, like we hear Auntie Zod saying that the father, when it's not his child, he wants nothing to do. It's so important for that father, if the child is from the mother and is a stepfather, he must love that child.
Exactly.
He must be able to to bring affection to that child, to bring him on his lap and reassure him, because his father image is so important, because it will break his father image. It will tear him in pieces. And we can't allow culture and hard hearts to rule us. In these situations, we must see the need of the child and be broken before the Lord, for the Lord to help us, to avoid as much as possible to destroy the life of that child.
Well, unfortunately, Mama, I'll have to ask you to give us your final word where this topic is concerned. I mean, we've touched on a lot of things today, but maybe just in closing, you can just encourage mothers out there, you know, the stepmothers, that are struggling to embrace this, the stepchildren that are struggling to embrace this, and the biological kids that are in there that have to embrace that they're having a step brother or sister coming in. The dynamics are quite huge. What encouragement can you bring in your final word?
I would say to the biological mother, listen, that's the reality. So accept, help others to help you to accept the situation as it is and try to build with the new cell, with the new couple or whatever it is. And I've seen where the parents have remained friends. And that is really the best for the children. Where sometimes the mother can visit in the home of the father with the stepmother, and it's okay. It's really helping the children. Now, to the stepmother, I will say, I'm encouraging the Lord. He can equip you. He will equip you, because the Lord loves that child. And the Lord wants the best for that child. He really wants to be able, for that child to be able to feel His love. And He has you as a channel for that to happen. And for these stepchildren, I will say, turn to Jesus. He's able to heal your heart. He's able to comfort you. He can be your father. He can be your mother. In the midst of all this, He can help you forgive, turn the page, adapt to your new situation so that this situation doesn't destroy your future. It's possible. The Lord can equip you. He can help you. His grace will be sufficient in that situation.
Oh, wonderful, Mama Audrey. Thank you so much for that. And I hope there's so many of them listening out there, not just stepmothers, but stepfathers as well. I think it goes both ways. So thank you so much, Mama Audrey, for that. And thank you to Auntie Zods and Jackie. And also to Alvera. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. But viewers, there you have it. I mean, after all, we are all one in Jesus Christ. And He loves everyone. And so let's spread the love. So viewers, if you have any questions, if any stepchildren out there, we don't even want to call it stepchildren. If anyone is struggling out there with regards to this topic, please, please write to us. We would love to be a support to you in such situations. And I'm sure Mama Audrey has more input that she couldn't even bring today. So write to us on Instagram, on Facebook, and on YouTube as well. So until next time, God bless and bye-bye. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today. We were very happy to have you, and we've got lots more interesting topics to discuss on Malaika. But to stay up to date, you need to subscribe, as on the bottom of the screen. Just click that button, to stop me from talking. Click it, and see you soon.